In today's 9th episode of the Sports and Psychology podcast, we are talking situations. And I saw this question on Twitter among the players hoping to get scholarships for university. Should I ride the bench on varsity in my sophomore or junior year or start for JV against lesser competition? We've all been there in life, where we're too good for what we're doing and maybe not good enough for the next level yet. So if you're a coach, player, or sports enthusiast and you want some help with decision making as to continue where you're at or take the next big leap, which means taking a risk, then you're right where you want to be. Hello, buenos dias, dobrý den, ohayo gozaimasu. Welcome to the Sports and Psychology podcast, the weekly Saturday morning pod where we talk all things athletes, tactics, performance, and most importantly, mindset. I'm your host, letting them three balls fly, Cord Thomas. I'm a mindset coach specializing in sports psychology, performance, stress and anxiety reduction, and mental preparation, having helped hundreds of clients and tens of professional athletes exceed their potential, reach their goals, and lead fulfilling lives. After becoming a two-time Taekwondo Junior Olympic medalist and moving from the US to Europe to study and play basketball, I found my passion in the psychology of success. Before we hop into things, do me a favor, hit that follow button below the video or the pod to get updates on new episodes. And if you're here with me on YouTube, hit me with a like and a comment. Thank you for making the Sports and Psychology pod your first Saturday morning listen. If you want to reach out and connect with me or join in our mailbag episode, you can find me on Instagram at athlete.m1ndset, Twitter, athletem1ndset, or email me at sportsandpsychologypod@gmail.com. Let's hop into things. Since I'm traveling in the upcoming weeks, this and the next few episodes are going to be without the news and notes section so that I can record ahead and keep rolling out the content for you. That being said, let's open this topic up. So the original question was, should I play varsity and ride the bench or should I play JV? This is a scenario where I'm assuming that the person is quite good on the JV team and has the opportunity to play varsity, but just isn't quite there when it comes to actually making the varsity team, or there are people still in front of them in the line, and so they're kind of in a holding pattern. What's important in this scenario, in this situation, is what the goals are. What are the goals of the person involved? Look, if your goal in 30 years, in 10 years, is to say, I played varsity basketball, I played varsity soccer, what have you. I was a manager at a big company for 10 years. Who cares if you're sitting on the bench? Right? Like, get into it, go do it, and it doesn't matter if you're not fulfilling the role 100%, you're there. You're achieving your goal. Why did I present it this way? Because that's not the goal for most of us. If you're listening to this podcast, I'm guessing your goal is somewhere much higher than that, and you believe that you have what it takes to get there. So if your goal is to play at university, if your goal is to be a professional one day, if your goal is to not only be the manager, but to be the owner of your own company one day, and you want to gain that experience, then that's different. Then we're talking about your goal being growth. Then we're talking about your long-term goals being very different than, I just want to say that I did it once. Good. So, first of all, we need to know what the goals are. For this podcast, I'm going to be working off the goal of being growth. To me, there's no greater goal than that, is to constantly grow. And for someone who's an athlete, all you can ask for is to continuously get better. If you're happy with where you're at, fine. But then why are you dealing with what choice to make? You're happy with where you're at. Doesn't matter. Play as much as you can, right? So figure out what your goals are. Now, if you don't know what they are, don't know how to set them maybe, do me a favor, go back to episodes 1 and 2 of this very podcast. It's in the feed where you found this episode. We talk about micro goals. We talk about longer goal setting for the season. Eventually, I will also do an episode on actual goal setting, how to set long-term goals. But for right now, that's going to be your best resource. For me, the best answer to this question Why not do both? Huh? What do you mean do both? At least when I was back in high school in the US, you had 6 quarters to play. Play your 4 quarters, get your time in, get the competition in, beat up on the JV team, and then sit your butt on the bench and ride that varsity bench and be there to support and to learn as much as you can from the older guys. And if by chance there's an injury or something, you are there to play. If the opposite is available, if they say, hey, you get 2 quarters of JV, fine, whatever. You can do both. Get creative, find a way to do both. Same thing for my business listeners, for maybe the sports enthusiasts but aren't getting into the sport themselves, or the coaches out there. If you can do both, why not do both? Get creative, find a way to do both. If you're not quite ready to be a manager but you want to dip your toe in, ask for some projects. Ask to do something halfway there. Ask to get that experience. Hey, can I lead a project? Can I lead a group of people in something without actually having the responsibility of being their manager to get the experience? Or maybe instead of jumping from no team to a 10-person team, can I find a 5-person one? Find a way to do smaller steps. Try and combine them. Be creative if you can, if there's that option. That option isn't available for everyone, and that's okay. To me, the optimal level of growth, if I'm in between levels of whatever it is, I'm going to find in between. I'm going to find somewhere where I still have the opportunity to really compete and have the opportunity to somehow still challenge myself while having a reflection of where my gaps are and why I'm not at the higher level yet. So combining the two makes a whole lot of sense. Even if combining the two, like for the high school athletes out there, means let me play games with JV and practice with varsity. I don't even have to ride the bench. I can pay to get a ticket in and I can ride the bench from the other side of the stadium. I can watch, I can cheer, I can see what's happening, I can learn from how they play, and I can see why I'm not being chosen, I can see why I can't keep up. Or maybe there's just a seniority thing, which is okay. Let me grow. Let me find a way to grow and let me make sure I make the varsity team the next year. We are going to take a short break now. And we've gone over what our goals are and how maybe thinking outside the box would help. And in the second segment, we're going to hop into why continuing down our current path might be the right decision for us. Stick with me. It is time to talk about stress. We're hitting the fall and winter seasons, family gatherings, heavy work schedules, exams, etc. And managing our stress levels is a necessity. Other than finding help from someone like myself to teach you techniques and manage your stress levels, an easy thing all of us can do is to just take a moment, take a deep breath in, really sit, and say one thing that I was successful in today and one thing I'm grateful for today. Let's do it together right now. I was successful in having 5 clients today and dealing with a really difficult emotional session first thing in the morning at 8 a.m. And I am grateful today for you, dear listeners, for every single one of you here listening, growing with this podcast here with me. That felt good, didn't it? By taking a moment to reflect and to notice how we're doing and feeling, we're going to give ourselves a small break from the constant anxiety and problem solving, clear out our head, and be able to move forward calmer and more focused. So make sure to take a moment to reflect on yourself and how well you're doing today. We are back, and here in the second segment, we are talking about why we might want to keep on the path we're currently on instead of taking the big leap. Then, in the third segment, we're going to jump into why, for some, making that big leap is definitely the way to go and how to make that big jump easier for you. In the first segment, I said that for this podcast, I would be taking our goal as growth to be our biggest carrier throughout the pod. So, to me, if your goal is growth, then your priority should be finding what version of the reality would be giving you the biggest amount of growth. Now, if you see yourself sitting on the bench in varsity, playing in practices against people who you're completely out of your depths with, stick with JV. Why are you trying to jump into an area that you're not ready for yet? Why are you trying to jump into competition with older, more experienced players who are just going to kill you and lower your confidence? If confidence is a goal, if growth is a goal, and you're maybe at the average, fantastic. Stay where you're at, grow, get up to the level where you're really feeling like you've outgrown it. Same thing comes with role. Your role, the vision of your coach, your vision of who you are as a player might be different from your actual role has been. Maybe you're a great role player. Maybe you're the best rebounder on your JV team. Amazing. Maybe you're a great goal scorer on your JV team. Amazing. But maybe your vision for yourself, maybe your role should be a lot bigger than that, than just a goal scorer, than just a rebounder. Maybe you have room for growth as an overall player, as an all-around player. JV gives you the opportunity to practice those skills, those goals, without being put into competition where you're asked to do your very best and use your best skills as possible and not create any new opportunities for growth. Like, if the goal is to win for the team and your goal is growth, then you're going to be running into a T. Ideally, when you're hitting varsity level, the goal is to win, right? You want your team to win. You want to reach a national championship or state championship or what have you. And you want to be ideally not at the average level, not good at one thing, but really crushing the competition as a team. So if you're asked to play a small role on the varsity team and you know there's areas that you could get better at and practice those areas on the JV team, stay with JV. That makes a whole lot of sense. For my working listeners out there, the same thing applies to you at work. If you're an employee and you eventually want to become a manager, or you're a manager and you want to become a director or an owner yourself, and there you're not seeing the creative version of things where you could combine the two. Ask yourself what skills you need to grow in to feel really confident as the manager. Ask yourself, what are the things that would make me a good manager that I want to learn? And then we want to ask, how can we learn those things in our current position? It might mean getting out of our comfort zone. It might mean shadowing our manager more. It might mean changing our priorities of what we do now, which is fine because we want to continue growing. But maybe staying where I'm at now means a greater opportunity for growth in the short term than jumping off the deep end and trying to do something that I'm just not ready for yet. In general, I would say jump off the deep end, figure it out, but we also want the comfortability level, and maybe the management isn't seeing that we're ready for it yet because we haven't found that experience or we haven't come over to their idea of what the priorities are. So start taking a look at your manager's priorities, start taking a look at the owner's priorities, and start seeing things from a bigger picture. And that's going to also help you to learn where the areas of growth for you are and how you can jump up to that next level while working on yourself at the current one. We are going to take another short break. And when we come back, we're going to cover why it might be best for me to jump in with both feet into a new role and how to make taking that leap easier. Don't pull off your headphones just yet. Stick with me. It is time for me to talk about my services. One of my favorite topics with clients is leadership, organizing and driving a team, setting standards, values, priorities, and a passion for success. This applies to both my athletes, coaches, and my non-athlete clients, such as the 5 to 6 business owners I have at the moment. I love helping owners and managers as well as leaders of a sport spend time and energy on what's truly valuable. Can you imagine? I had a new client come to me and tell me his own sports success was being derailed by the fact that his energy just went into organizing and caring for the rest of his team? This is more common than you think, listener. Then I have a whole slew of clients who either are supposed to lead and they don't, or don't know how, or they just don't have the respect of their team or the management or their colleagues. We do such amazing work together, and it's absolutely fantastic to see these people evolve and to see them outpacing their goals month after month. If this sounds like something you need, then reach out now. Send me a few sentences on what you're struggling with, and I'll tell you directly whether or not we would be a good match. And if not, I'll do my best to recommend someone who would. I work with athletes 15 years of age and older, and all other clients from 17 plus. And each session is only $60 until the end of the year. All of my sessions are completely personalized to your needs, whether that's online or in person. So take a look at booking a session directly at coachingpraha.com. That's coachingpraha.com/book online. Or reach out to me on Instagram at athlete.m1ndset, Twitter athlete_m1ndset, or email me at sportsandpsychologypod@gmail.com. Welcome back to the Sports and Psychology Podcast. In the second segment, we covered why staying in place might be a good option for you. Now in the third segment, we are going to dive into why we might want to take that big leap. Jump 2 feet, head first, and how to make taking that jump easier for us. Why would I take that big leap? Why would I change? Why would I jump up into varsity? A, my growth has completely stalled at the other level. I am killing the competition. I'm better than everyone I see around me. My teammates are maybe even hindering me, and everything stands and falls on me. I want to move up. I want tougher competition because it's too. Option number 2, maybe it's not too easy, but in the very near future, it's going to be. I'm right on the edge, and I know that if I just tweak a couple things, perfect a couple things that I've already been working on, I'm going to be there and everything's going to be too easy. Number 3, I feel like the people around me or the people leading me aren't helping me towards my growth where I need it. And so being around older, more experienced players, managers, what have you, is going to bring me a higher level of growth by learning from them than being around younger players or people my own age, my own experience level, because we're all in the same pool of just kind of doing the same thing over and over again and no one's really growing. Option number 3 here, for those who want to jump in the deep end, is for those people who don't see where they need to grow. If you think you're perfect and you're not being chosen to start on the varsity team and you feel like you should, hop onto varsity. Hop off the JV team, hop onto varsity, and get that slap in the face. Get hit, be against that better competition and see where you need to grow. Try and search for the areas of growth so that you can get the coaches to choose you. Ask the coaches, find out what it is you need to do to grow. Maybe it's physical, maybe it's a skill level, maybe it's maturity level, emotional intelligence, communication. There's all these things that coaches or managers are looking for to help us move up. And if we're not seeing it, A, we can ask them. B, we can jump straight in and get a breath of fresh air or a bucket of cold water on the head in the form of, this is the reality, you're not good enough yet. And that's okay. And maybe at that point we choose to go back down to JV, or maybe at that point we stay with varsity and we really work to get better at those things and continue being challenged and face those challenges head on with a good attitude saying, I can do it. I just didn't know I needed to. And that's okay. So at this point, we've kind of gone over why we would want to take the big leap. What scenarios would be good for us to take that big leap? Now, I promised we would talk about how to make it easier. We started the podcast with it. Know what your goals are. That's step 1. If you don't know what your goals are, making a decision is going to be really, really difficult. So start with your goals. Like I said, if you're struggling with that, go back to episode 1 or 2 of this podcast. It's in the feed, wherever you found this podcast. Then, ask yourself where you will be in 3 years depending on the decision you make. If I stick with JV, where will that get me in 3 years? If I move up to varsity, where will that get me in 3 years? If I stay for a year in my current position, where is that going to get me in 3 years? If I move up to a management position now, where is that going to get me in 3 years? If the answers are completely the same, maybe it doesn't matter so much. Maybe you're racking your brain about a decision that isn't all that important. And maybe we can take a bit of a backseat and see how things play out. Or maybe it's completely different and one decision makes a huge difference. Or maybe it's completely the same, but the path to get there is different. And then it's a question of, okay, if the result is the same, what is the path that I like better? Lastly, if nothing else, if you're still at a complete, I don't know what to do chord, please help me. Ask yourself what a self-respecting human being in your situation would do. What would a self-respecting human being do? I wish I had the abbreviation for it or short version of it. I don't, but what would a self-respecting person do? I'm a sophomore. A self-respecting person would play, would get as much time, and would grow. I'm a junior. A self-respecting person would knock out the competition in JV and make the coach's decision really hard as to whether they choose me for varsity or not. I'm a junior. I already did that last year as a sophomore. A self-respecting person goes and sits their butt on the bench and comes into practice knocking out the first team every single day, working harder than everyone else. And I'm making the coach's decision whether to play me or not a really hard decision. If I'm an employee and I've been in this position for 5 years, what would a self-respecting human do? Would they go and take that next step, move up to the management level? Or would they stay where they are and continue to grow? Or maybe start growing? If I'm a manager and I know I want to own my own business one day, what would a self-respecting human do? Maybe it's to take that huge leap and start my own business and start working off of myself because I respect myself, and that is the best way to help me move forward towards my goals. Know what your goals are. Ask yourself where you're going to be in 3 years. And then, if nothing else, what would a self-respecting human being do in my situation? I hope that you've had a great time here with me discussing whether to take that next big step or stick on your current path, such as jumping from JV to varsity or from a senior employee to a manager. If you have other ideas, comments, or just completely disagree with me, make sure you send me an email at sportsandpsychologypod@gmail.com, and I will definitely respond. I think it's great to know that if we are clear on our goals, we can take the difficulty of making a decision from extremely challenging down to simple. Because at that point, we're at a simple for and against list. Or if we want to be super special, we could do a SWOT diagram, put in strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. It's still a simple calculation. We're not jumping or throwing darts in the dark. We're taking a clear list and we're able to look at it logically. Thank you for listening or watching here on YouTube to the Sports and Psychology Podcast. Please tell your friends if you liked the pod. It's the best way to get the word out there that this kind of great content is here for you. I'm streaming every Saturday morning everywhere you can find podcasts as well as on YouTube. If you want to get your questions into a mailbag or give me your thoughts, give me a comment below on YouTube or reach out on Instagram at athlete.m1ndset, Twitter, athletem1ndset, or email at sportsandpsychologypod@gmail.com. Do me a favor and hit that like and subscribe button and make sure to leave that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. And in the words of Jabari Walker, don't let today get the best of you. Go get the best of today. Have a great weekend, everyone. Talk to you next week.